Hello there, Kelvin Chin here. Welcome, good morning, Saturday morning to you. Hope everybody's having a great weekend so far. It was coming out sideways the other day, so hopefully this is coming out right side up. Anyway, just wanted to give people a quick preview about my 6-part video conference series. It's an online video conference series going to be done live each session, starting on September 28th, Saturday, at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And each session will go about an hour and a half. Sometimes they go 2 hours long. But they'll be recorded so that if you can't make all of them, then you watch the recording. No big deal. In fact, I already have people signed up who can't make any of them, but they want to be part of it. So they are going to watch the recordings that I send them afterwards, and they're going to email me questions beforehand saying, hey, how about this, and can you cover this in this session, and whatever. So I just try to make it as flexible and easy as possible for people to access, because those of you who've worked with me or know a little bit about my nonprofit work that I'm doing full-time now, it's all about, I'm trying to reduce fear in the world. So on whatever level. And one of the areas that I focus on is fear of death. But I help people with all kinds of fears. But my primary focus is on overcoming the fear of death and reducing anxiety about death and dying with people. So thus this series on Afterlife and Reincarnation Experiences was born out of that desire to help give people a little bit more insight, a little bit more knowledge, a little bit what I call data points. So it's going to be based on my experiences and other people I know who've had direct experiences with the afterlife and reincarnation. I've had experiences with the whole range, which I'll kind of just give you a brief overview of in a minute, but I'm also involving all of you. So if you have had experiences in any of these areas, I would love to have you participate in these in these calls and these sessions, because in the Q&A, which sometimes have lasted as long as an hour Q&A, people exchanging ideas and so forth and experiences, and then asking me more questions from your own experiences to try to clarify things. It's just been really invigorating and a great experience, an interactive experience. This is the 5th time I'm doing this series. And every time I do this series, more material comes out. Just because, of course, it's a different group of people. We've had as many as 40, 50 people in these sessions previously. And so it's a great interactive thing. Sometimes there's a smaller group that's live, and then other people are watching, and then people are giving input, as I said, via email to me, and I'm sharing these in the sessions as well. So I'm trying to create an environment where it's very open also, so that people, regardless of what their beliefs systems are, you can believe in an afterlife, you can not believe in afterlife. You may just be curious. You may be on the fence. I think most people are fence sitters, and they're not sure. Because, as I say sometimes, often I say to my clients, we don't know till we know, right? We'll all know at that moment, at that what I call the most intimate moment of our lives. At that moment, when we physically die, when we physically shut off, is our mind going to continue, or is it not going to continue? It's pretty binary. This is one of the few things in life that's black and white. And when I say mind, I mean consciousness, soul, spirit, awareness. People use different words. I try to use words that are not culturally or religiously based or loaded. So I just say mind, but big mind. Our mind is going to continue, or it's not going to continue. And my role in my nonprofits and all the work that I do, many of you know that I teach meditation. I've taught meditation for 46 years now. All the work that I do is about reducing anxiety, reducing fear, expanding our conscious capacity for experience. And that also means knowledge. It means understanding and not basing our lives and therefore our behavior on what I consider misunderstood points of life. And so I go through some of these points in these 6 sessions that I'm going to outline to you in a sec, in order to help us live life more freely and more happily. That's my goal. It's not about changing your beliefs. It's about getting new ideas, new perspectives, new what I call data points, and then seeing if they resonate with you or not. And if they do, great. And if they don't, you shelve them and you put them on a shelf, and maybe you pull them off later, maybe you don't. But it's not just for people, in other words, who have fears about death and dying, because I'm giving you perspectives that you may be able to share with other people who may have a different belief system from yours as well. So I really take a very broad approach to this whole thing. Those of you who have read my book, this is a copy of my book, Overcoming the Fear of Death. It's available on all the online booksellers out there, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you name it. If you've read my book, you know that I take a non-religious approach to everything that I do. Non-cultural, non-religious based approach. And so I embrace all religions, all belief systems. I have clients in 30 different countries now, every religion, and including atheists and agnostics. So when people die, if there is an afterlife, which my experience is that there is, when we die, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or you don't believe in God. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Christian, a Jew, or just somebody who is a spiritual seeker who does not involve him or herself in organized religions. It doesn't matter. There is a structure to the experience that happens when we die. There's a structure that happens afterwards when we're in what I call the afterlife. And that's what I'll be talking about in this series. Again, starting on September 28th, so 10 a.m. in the mornings, Saturdays, every other weekend. So I do it on alternate weekends to give people a chance to kind of absorb the material, think about it, ask more questions, integrate it, and so forth. And by the way, it's not going to happen on Thanksgiving weekend if anybody's worried about that. Thanksgiving week, it's not happening on that week. So I intentionally started this particular series to avoid Thanksgiving week, so everybody can be with their families and friends. Let me just, before I always wonder when I am watching YouTube videos or lectures or seminars, who is this guy? What's his authority for speaking about this? Somebody asked me yesterday if I was a doctor or whatever, and no, but I was pre-med and changed. But I do come from a science background, but my talks and sharings with you in this 6-part series is based on personal experience. So just a quick overview of my background. I started meditating when I was a teenager. I was 19 years old. About 3 years later, I learned how to teach meditation. And I've taught meditation ever since for 46 years now. I've taught thousands of people, taught the first meditation courses ever at West Point Military Academy, and the first meditation courses up in the U.S. Army in South Korea and on the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, many times, 6, 8 times in the demilitarized zone, and all the U.S. Air Force bases in Korea as well. Taught in schools, living rooms, all over the world for the last 46 years. In my mid-20s, so in the mid-1970s, I spontaneously started having experiences that I didn't know what they were. That's how I should best describe them to you now. Later, I read about these experiences and realized that they were past life memories. I started connecting the dots about experiences that I had. Kelvin Chin doesn't know this. I never read about this. I never saw a movie about this. I didn't even know this word. what's that about? I had to go look it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica back then. This is long before the internet. Those of you who are young and are watching this Facebook Live, there were things called encyclopedias back then, and they weren't online. And you'd actually get a book off the shelf. And fortunately, my parents invested in encyclopedias, and I looked stuff up. And I was in my mid-20s. I was 26 years old. This started happening spontaneously. I had never read any spiritually oriented books. I didn't know what past lives were. I didn't know the concept. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know reincarnation. What's that? And so I grew up I was born in Boston, grew up in Norwood, Massachusetts. So people who are seeing me now, you're looking at me, who is an Asian guy? Maybe he grew up with Asian culture. I grew up eating hot dogs and hamburgers. Middle-class suburbia. My father was an engineer. My mother was a chemist at the time. But I didn't know anything about this stuff. It just spontaneously started happening. So I talk about this, and it's continued. So now my memories go back, my past life memories go back 6,000 years, 20 to 23, I think, and counting different lifetimes, different amounts of memories in different lifetimes. And as I said, stuff about those lifetimes that are like, how the heck do I know that? And then, just really unusual stuff. So we'll unfold that, unbundle that, and talk about how that unfolded in the series together. But then in the mid-1980s, I started spontaneously again, completely out of the blue. I started getting what I call downloads from the other side. I just started getting information from entities that I didn't know and up to that point, and didn't know who they were and so forth. Just spontaneously started coming into my mind, my consciousness, and so forth. Information about myself, information about other people who I didn't know, that I later corroborated and found out it was accurate. It was like, what? How do I know that? Angels, archangels, and other discarnate, not in physical form, folks. Thank you, Joy, for boosting the signal. Thank you so much. I got your message here. Thank you so much. That just spontaneously started happening. I tell you this because, again, back to my point, who is this guy? Where's he coming from? Did he read a whole bunch of books? I have read no books on any of this stuff. I've read snippets of little passages in here and there, but my experience base is just so broad and so diverse. I just go based on my experience and what makes sense to me. What does logically make sense to me in terms of how I've thought about this, and it logically has continued to make sense the way I've been thinking about this for the last 40-something years. This has been going on. And so this has all continued right up to the present. And that's my background. And feel free to message me, ask me more questions. Go on my website, kelvinchin.org, read my bio. You can read about my corporate and my business backgrounds and so forth and so on, because I have not been doing this work full-time since the 70s, and now I've been doing it again full-time in the last 6-7 years, since I left corporate and my corporate and legal jobs. But again, you can read my bio in greater detail online at my website. Here are the 6 titles of the talks that I'm going to talk about. 6 topical areas. First one, what happens when we die? So I'm going to talk about what is the transition like, what happens, and what's the range of possible experiences people can have. Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are many, many different experiences people can have when they transition after they physically die. And by the way, just as a quick aside, in my book, you read some longer stories about my dad. My dad had what I call the science belief about death and dying. One life, that's it. The brain and the mind are connected. There is no soul, spirit, consciousness, or anything. It's all connected to the brain. That was my dad's belief until he died, and then he started communicating with us afterwards. So we'll talk about that and many other stories and so forth, but I'll get into the more details in that first session about what happens when we die. What's the structure of the experience like, regardless of what the belief system is that the person comes from, or the cultural belief. So the second session will be on, can we get glimpses of the other side? NDEs, OBEs, STEs. What do those acronyms stand for? OBEs, out-of-body experiences. NDEs, near-death experiences. STEs, spiritually transformative experiences. So I'm gonna talk about those and talk about some of the experiences that I've had with all of those, and some other folks that I know, mainly friends of mine. I'll share with you. Obviously, they've given me permission. Some of which is in my book, and some's not in my book. We'll talk about glimpses and experiences people have had from the other side. And as I said, please feel free to join and share your experiences as well. This is a sum is, what is it? The whole is more than the sum of the parts. Kind of teaching experience is the way I teach. The third session is reincarnation in your future or in your past? Kind of a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke. But talk about reincarnation. I'm going to talk about how they unfolded for me. And again, how they unfold for me may not be how they unfolded for you, if you have had memories, or if you do in the future. Is it necessary that we have past life memories for us to feel like we are evolving, developing fully, and so forth and so on? We'll talk about that. How do you know that it's a past life memory and not just some incredible imagination that you have? We'll talk about that. Fourth session in the series. Why do people think there's a hell? I'm going to talk about punishment. Punishment's a big deal on this planet. Punishment, not only in physical reality, people like to punish people, but also in the afterlife, there's a concern that people have before they die. Am I going to get punished? Is there a hell? I'm going to talk about the idea of karma. Karma is a form of consequences and so forth. Where did this idea of hell come from? Where did this idea of karma come from? And what was the thinking of those spiritual leaders who came up with these concepts, and where are they? What's their thinking about that now? Because as I am going to talk to you about in the fifth session of the series, can our friends communicate from the other side? I've had, as I've already said to you, I've had many communications from the other side, from friends, from people I don't know, and from, we'll just say, from entities who've never been in physical form, either on Earth or any other planet. And some of those personalities, we'll call them, on the other side, who I've had detailed conversations with, were some of the early spiritual leaders who came up with some of these ideas that we're going to talk about in that fourth session, karma, for example, dharma, and all of that. So I'm going to share with you some of those conversations and some of those insights. And again, you can, if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, you can shelve it, and so forth. This is very a la carte, shall we say, the way I teach. You take what fits and what you can digest easily and comfortably, and you do not take the rest. You put it away in a to-go bag somewhere. That's the way I teach. So I'm not here to persuade you. That's my thing. All right? So the sixth session in the series is what part of us continues after our body dies. So after our body dies, what continues? Is it our soul, our mind, something else? Is there a difference between the mind and the soul? What about soul contracts on the other side? Before you come down the chute, maybe into another lifetime, if that's part of your belief system, reincarnation, past lives, future lives, and so forth. What kind of conscious acts can we can we exercise on the other side? And how does that fit in with free will? The whole notion of free will or choice. By the way, when I say free will, I mean personal choice. I've seen YouTube videos that completely conflate this idea of free will by supposed experts on spirituality, where they talk about, well, there's no free will, because if there was free will, if I wanted to play tennis, I could be able to be an expert tennis player. Or if I wanted to be a millionaire, I could just will myself to be a millionaire. So therefore they use that as an example of no free will. That is a conflation, that is a confusion, a complete misunderstanding about free will. Free will means personal choice. Do you have personal choice at any particular time to change your mind and to make a different decision? That's what free will is. Free will doesn't mean manifesting anything you want, and if you cannot manifest anything in the material world that you want, then you don't have free will. I've seen this many times by spiritual teachers on YouTube who completely conflate this. So that's a good example of what I talk about. Those of you who can see this, I have a triangle here. I'm making a triangle. You have a false notion, a false understanding down here at the point of the upside down triangle here, and it gets expanded and exacerbated and into your thinking, your behavior, and you make all kinds of unpleasant, unhappy decisions leading to more unhappiness in your life. So I'm all about clearing up these conflations, clearing up these confusing thoughts that many people are out there propounding in order to promote less fear, more happiness out here in our outer life. So again, we're going to meet live via video conference on my GoToMeeting account. Register at my website, kelvinchin.org. Just my name.org. They're all .orgs because, as I said, I teach via my nonprofits. And they're going to be every other Saturday starting September 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And as I said earlier, for those of you who joined late, you can watch the recordings. So you'll always have availability, even if you miss a session. And if you don't miss a session, you can watch the recordings over and over again and pull in more information because there's going to be a huge amount of download of information in each session. There's an early bird discount that I have extended till Monday. It was supposed to end today, but I extended to Monday so that people could see a right side up recording of me in landscape here. Hopefully it came out okay. And it's just $100 for all 6 sessions. So it's basically the price of popcorn and a movie, you know. Hopefully you get more out of it than the popcorn and a movie, but long term anyway. After that, the price will be $125. But again, I try to make it accessible for people because I'm trying to help as many people as possible. So along that score, if you need a scholarship, I turn nobody away. Nobody is turned away for financial reasons, period. If you need a scholarship, you shoot me a Facebook message, email from my website, whatever. Just let me know, and you tell me what you don't have to give me your personal details and so forth. I trust you. No one is turned away for financial reasons, and I've comped people in from around the world. Look, I have clients in Bangladesh where the annual income is $2,000 to $3,000 a year. I have clients throughout Europe, North America, South America, Mexico, Honduras, Australia, and so forth. There's all different economies going on in the world. I help people from wherever they're at. It doesn't matter. If you were at the IONS conference a week ago, where I spoke, as I was the opening night feature speaker for the 4-day conference of International Association for Near-Death Studies. That's what IANDS stands for. You can go to their website, ions.org, to learn more about them. But if you were at that conference, you are comped in. This is free. This 6-part series is free for you. Okay? Just let me know you were there. I trust you. Those people who were there at the conference may have received my brochure, and there's a longer. If you have a copy of this brochure, there's a description right here in the brochure about this 6-part series. This brochure covers everything that I do, all the 4 or 5 different areas that I focus on in my nonprofit work. But again, just go to my website, kelvinchin.org, register there, and like I said, finance is not a barrier. And time should not be a barrier either, because I'm recording this, and you can join whatever session's live, and you can watch all the recordings if you miss them. Okay? So thank you so much for watching this Facebook Live, and I hope you can join us and tell other people. Again, I'm all about helping people live life more fully now, and therefore understanding afterlife, what happens after we die. Because as far as I'm concerned, in terms of my experiences, life is eternal. My memories go back 6,000 years, as I said, and I will outline why I think there's an essential part of me, not Kelvin Chin, but I've been somebody else and somebody else in the past, and I'll be somebody else and somebody else in the future. I've been a woman before, and so forth. Why I think this essential me continues through eternity. I will discuss that in the 6-part series. But again, my goal is to reduce fear in the world about anything and increase understanding as much as possible that promotes a reduction and elimination of fear in the world. Why? So that we can live and we can enjoy life here in physical reality. I am not a believer that physical reality is an illusion. It's only an illusion if you think this is it. And when you start to have experiences like Roger Ebert did, the famous movie critic, when you can Google this, he said to his wife right before he died, this is an illusion, because he had an experience on the other side right before he died, within days before he died. And so, it feels like an illusion if you have no experience expanding your conscious capacity for mental experience outside of the little thinking box that most people are thinking in. And so those people, those of you who meditate, who turn within, who do other spiritual practices that allow your mind to expand, turn within, and expand outside that little thinking box that we all think that we're incorrectly think that we may be boxed into, you experience that. When you die, it's not such a big shock, because it's like, okay, been here, done that, okay, this is familiar to me. So that's my goal, is to develop more and more data points in more people, whether they experientially have a near-death experience or not. I'm not a proponent of going out and trying to find a near-death experience you can have. No, but reduce that fear by expanding the capacity for experience, both experientially and knowledge-wise. And so this series is about knowledge. It's about understanding more about this, to reduce our fear so we can live here in the physical reality that we call Earth and enjoy it more. That's my goal. Thank you so much for being on, and we'll see you September 28th, hopefully, 10 in the morning Pacific, every other Saturday after that. Okay? Take care.